way back, it might be, it could be, it is. Holy cow! Welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Cub fans, welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. Thank you so much to our awesome sponsors, Wrigleyville Sports, the best sports store in Wrigleyville, and Yagi Road Roasting Company, based in Valparaiso, Indiana, serving cups of coffee just as special as the moments you drink them in. Here's your host, Jeff Candid Cubs Rogowskis and Pat Erickson. Hey, Cub fans! Welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. As always, I am your host, Jeff Candid Cubs Rogowskis, and today we have a special guest joining me from the Locked On Cubs podcast. You know him as Mr. Sam Olbur. Sam, thank you so much for hopping on today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I know you got to go to Cubs convention. I unfortunately did not get to go. I got COVID, which apparently is still real. So I missed out. But Did you have a great time? How was it?
Yeah, it was really my first time. It was my first time where I could actually talk about it because I was a kid. The other time that I had went, and I went, to be honest, I went more for the show, just to meet listeners and do that. The convention itself, I thought it was pretty cool. The different panels were cool. The Friday night experience was cool. Hanging out with Matt and then, my buddy as well. It was a fun time. I would definitely, I would recommend going at least once just, as a fan. I'll be going every year now as a podcaster, but it was really cool. But the best part for me was just meeting our listeners and talking with them and listening to their story and their, how they are as fans. So.
Yeah, Cub fans, don't have to explain it to you. We're a special bunch, always looking for a connection, and we all have very similar but different origin stories and, how we found the team. And yeah, it's a really cool community. And yeah, I'm glad to have kind of inserted myself into this space in the last year. But yeah, a Bricks Behind the Ivy tradition for first-time guests is we like to, similar to probably what you were doing at Cubs convention, talk about your Cubs origin story.
Sure.
Just give us a little background on how you find the game of baseball, how you ended up being a Cubs fan, and then what led you to Locked On Cubs?
Yeah, so my dad, I basically I root for what my dad told me to root for as a kid. And so my dad's a diehard Cub fan, diehard Bear fan, diehard U of I guy. So those are pretty much my teams. And just growing up, my dad, you could see on the show my podcast, the Locked On Cubs, Matt and I's podcast, that, there's the passion, there's the after a game really frustrated, after a game really happy, that all comes from my dad. And then the knowledge, the trivia also. And then my grandfather on my mom's side was much more of a player type of perspective. He played and he was really real, and he would kind of be like, hey, Sam, relax. Here's what's going to, he was the guy that would tell me what's going to happen before it happened, sort of thing. And so I've kind of molded those two together, those two mentors, if you will, and kind of created my own path in terms of for the Cubs. We had season tickets when I was 4 years old. So I've been going, for a really long time, and just fell in love. They're my number one team. And, it went to a different level, Jeff, when I was playing, sports as a kid. I play high school sports. Once your career in sports ends and you have nowhere, because I'm a very competitive person, and you have nowhere to take that competitiveness, that's when my fandom went to a different level. Because I was the guy in college. I'm like, hey guys, we're not going out, until this Cub game's over. And my first year of college was the year they lost 100 games in 2013. And I'm sitting there watching every game until it ends because I'm just that obsessed with it. You know what I mean? And
sure.
It goes deep. What was the last question? Locked On Cubs?
Yeah. How did you end up in the Locked On Cubs space? And just give us an idea of, kind of what you do professionally as well.
Yeah, so Matt and I had a show called Anything Goes that we were doing every week, and it was literally just pretty much mostly sports related, but any sport. And, it didn't get a lot of listens, but we felt like we were doing a pretty good job. And then Matt, Matt's really good at like the space, like just knowing what's going on in the space, knowing the networks and everything. And he saw that there was an opening on Locked On Cubs, and he ran into one of the Locked On hosts, the Blackhawks hosts at like a local Subway, put our name in there. We auditioned, we got the show, and the rest from there is kind of played out. For me, I work for a company called Hotshot Sports in my day-to-day life. Just do like youth sports for kids. So I oversee a couple of our regions, and kind of like hire the coaches, help build the programs and stuff like that. And it balances out well. It's a flexible job. It's a lot, but I'm able to work from home a lot of days, and so I could hop on and do the show, and it works out.
Yeah, I think that's a similar situation. That flexibility that I feel like COVID kind of created as, opened the door to additional leisure time and hobbies and ventures like these types of things, which is kind of a positive. But no, that's really cool. Just your story and your background on the Cubs. I'm in the same boat of like the cradle Cub fan, raised by family Cub fans, WGN with my grandparents. Like, and yeah, if you can tell, like my fandom is. My
pretty cool room.
Yeah, this is my Cub cave, and
that's awesome.
For long-time listeners of my show, they know that like every person imagines what they're going to be when they grow up, and as soon as the shortstop for the Cubs thing failed around like the third grade, I just started collecting stuff and wanted to have a space that replicated Wrigley Field. And yeah, this is awesome. With the permission of my amazing wife, have been allowed to continue to curate this space, and
awesome,
it's been. I feel like a museum like curator sometimes, where I'm like constantly tinkering and moving, and like every time I acquire a piece, I'm like, well, where does this fit in the collection? And it's almost a full-time job in itself. But I love hearing
amazing wife, because as somebody who's not married and has the same obsession, one of my biggest fears is, am I going to be able to find someone that gets this? Do you know what I mean?
When I met Mrs. Candid Cubs, Rachel, shout out to you, love you more than anything in life. She was my blind date to fraternity formal when I was in college, and it's just, I was really busy with a bunch of stuff on campus and like didn't have time to find a date. And her roommate wanted to go with one of my fraternity brothers, and she didn't want to go alone for reasons. So she made her roommate Rachel go with, and she was my date. And
there you go.
They played Don't Stop Believing at our formal, and she got up and started singing Go Cubs Go over it and booed the song. And that was the moment in my brain, I'm like, I have to marry this woman.
Yeah,
like,
there you go.
This is straight up perfect.
So you just found someone that was like you anyway with that.
Yeah, she's not, I wouldn't say she's like a diehard, but she really likes sports, grew up in South Bend. Like, so Notre Dame was, like kind of the culture. And yeah, Northwest Indiana is still huge Cubs fans. Her dad was a big sports guy. So we went to Cub games a lot. Our wedding pictures are in Cub jerseys, and my son's named after Kyle Hendricks. He's a World Series baby. So like it runs deep here.
That's awesome.
It's not just
That's
decorative
awesome.
Blue blood. I'm pretty sure if I went to the doctor, like it would come out blue.
I love it.
Which might be a nutritional issue, not a Cub thing, but
that's awesome, man. Good for you.
So yeah, I just wanted to kind of, after we've got an idea of like what you do, who you are as a Cubs fan. So I kind of proposed a topic that we could talk about today, and I think it kind of affects the Cubs. Obviously, there was some obtuse comments from Mr. Ricketts on the budget, which I feel like has been one of the more hot button issues amongst Cubs fans in recent days. But there's also been some commentary about the Dodgers.
And did a show on it for today.
Yeah, what they're doing. So this is perfect. This is a perfect lead-in for you to add your show.
Yep.
And I'll be talking about this later this evening on Bleacher Bunch, about a podcast I listened to with Ben Verlander, Flippin' Bats, where he discussed about the Dodgers' position in baseball and his thoughts. So before we kind of talk about Ben Verlander and some of my views, what do you think about the Dodgers in baseball? Do you think what they're doing is bad for baseball?
Yeah.
Do you think it's good for baseball? What is your perspective on that?
It's definitely not good. I think it's, the question is how bad is it? And for my show today, what I talked about was just the point that I was trying to make with it is that I think people are the public is undervaluing the fortune that they had with their TV deal, and how that has really enabled them to spend. And look, if the Cubs are getting $330 million a year from their TV deal, would they be spending as much as the Dodgers? I don't know. Probably not. And I'm not the type of guy, and I'm sure you've watched our show, I'm not the type of guy that will ever defend Tom Ricketts. Whatever a Cubs apologist is not what I am. So they definitely need to spend more, and it would be nice. But I do think the Dodger thing, I get tired of the rhetoric of, oh, well, they're just the only team that cares, or they're the only team that wants to win. No, a lot of teams would care more if they were getting $330 million a year from their TV deal when everyone else is cord cutting, and teams like Minnesota and San Diego and whatever it is are having real trouble with their TV department. Meanwhile, the Dodgers are getting all that money. It's guaranteed. It's not predicated or conducive on subscriptions or anything like that. The Cubs have had their own problems with marquee. So I think that part of it, when I look at the Dodgers, people go, how are the Dodgers doing this? Why are the Dodgers doing it? That's the first place I go is, hey, Andrew Friedman's a phenomenal executive, probably the best that there is. Because you got to remember, to their credit, they were they were going to World Series before they started spending like this, 2017,
Correct.
2018. They have a great infrastructure, really good player development, and then they got a great business deal that has enabled them to be just the monster of baseball. It will change in a couple of years, I think, and we have to go from there. But overall, it's definitely not good for baseball. Where I'm at is I expected Roki to go there. I expected Shohei to go there. I expected Scott to go there. The Yates thing was probably the first time this offseason where I said, enough's enough. That's one where if I was like Manfred, I'd be like, come on. Can somebody offer him somewhere else? Like, do they need Yates too? You know what I mean? It was like, and it directly impacted us because those are all Sasaki, Scott, Yates, all Cubs targets. So,
yeah, and I think it's definitely interesting to me. I think, I'll sell the positive version of why this potentially could be good for baseball beyond like the actual roster building. But I always think of, like that 2012 Miami Heat team. And when they started assembling, LeBron and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, I feel like there's probably numbers out there, metrics of like hate watching, because it didn't become about watching the Heat. It was about rooting for them to lose. And they were obviously a super good team. I know like people in weird ways thought they underperformed because they didn't win every championship, but they won 2 in a row and went to the finals that one, I think in that third year.
All 4 years they went to the finals.
Yeah. So like ultimately it was a success from that perspective. And it's very interesting to think like, all right, well, if the Dodgers are getting all this national attention, it is going to help the game a little bit. The Major League Baseball gets in its own way in distribution. Like, exactly. Like I'm preaching to the choir there, but like
that's the pushback, right? The pushback, just real quick, is that the Heat were so much more accessible. But go ahead.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say, but it feels like the Dodgers have become such part of the national sports conversation, and people theoretically are going to hate them. It might rise the tide, but we'll see.
I think it's an interesting point. My concern would just be baseball just doesn't have the legs that basketball or football has, because the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs aren't a super team like that, a lot of people are starting to hate watch them. But it's just like with baseball, I just don't think people will care enough to hate watch the Dodgers because, baseball, it's such a commitment. It is. Like maybe in October they'll watch, but you really, like, I just can't imagine people going, man, it's 9:00 Central Time, 9:30 Central Time on a Tuesday. I want to watch the Dodgers lose to the Padres tonight. You know what I mean? Like, it's just baseball's a different animal with that.
It's true, and I think like folks like yourself and I, like, we're pretty dialed in. Like, we understand what this is and how much time and stuff is committed to it. It's almost part of the fun. I mean, for me, it's like there's something every day. The off days are awful because like you're just waiting for your next hit.
It's crazy. It's like the baseball season for me, especially, you know, with the show now, it's like it's a wake up. And for me at my day job, spring, summer is the busiest time of year. So for me, April through September, really late, I shouldn't say that. April through August is like mid-August. It is, hey, Sam, you want to hang out? Nope. Hey, Sam, you want to do something? Nope. It's wake up. First thing I do, check on the show that got uploaded that morning, make sure, you know, everything looks good, people like it, whatever. Then I go do my job, and then it's, hey, Cubs this. What's the line on this game? Who's pitching today? Boom, watch the Cubs. Then I have a fantasy baseball team. That takes a lot of work. So then I'm watching all the West Coast games, and then we're doing shows every night. I mean, it's fun though, man. I mean, I might be, you know, alone forever, but it's fun.
I don't think you'll be alone forever. Like there's a Cub fan out there for all those brickheads listening. Like eligible bachelor Sam Olbur right here. Die hard.
Yeah, man. Good luck.
Yeah, I think it's I gave up fantasy baseball going into this year just because like it was. I have 2 kids and a wife and a job, and like something had to give if I was going to keep doing this. But yeah, there's days you wake up and you're like, man, like this is a lot of work, but like. It's kind of like it's that weird version of complaining where you're like really anticipating the complaint. Like, oh wow, this is actually awesome, but I'm still going to say how busy I am, and that's
100%.
That's how I feel about it.
No, it's a great life, and like even like the Friday nights where because we don't record Friday for Saturday. Like even the Friday nights, if the Cubs are on the road or they play a 120, and you just have those nights where you just lock in on baseball for like 3 hours. It's just great.
Yeah, I have shout out to my best friend Brian Spichalski. He comes over here most of the year on Friday nights. In my house we call it Friday Spy Day, and like we have one TV with whatever baseball game is on. He's a huge Sox fan, which stinks for him right now. But we'll have watch whatever game. Playing MLB The Show on the other TV after my kids go to sleep. Like it's just baseball. I could consume.
Let me tell you something. If I ever get married, I'm calling you. I need to get some advice because my married friends, it's like that's not happening every Friday night.
My wife's super cool. She's another shout out to Mrs. Candy.
I'm calling you for you.
Maybe I should post this episode on Valentine's Day and be like, listen to it. Like, look how nice I am.
Seriously.
All right. Yeah, I think before we get going, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Let's do some rapid fire Cub questions.
Let's do it.
Favorite Cubs player of all time?
So this one's probably a weird one. So let me explain. So the answer is Starlin Castro.
Interesting. Okay.
And so obviously, you know, when I was rooting for Castro as a Cub, I know his career ended pretty poorly. This was obviously way before that. Yeah, so I was, you know, some of your most impressionable years, like I'm in high school, diehard Cub fan, and the Cubs just weren't watchable. And so when he came, I don't know what it was. I don't know if you guys remember this, but like 2010, all you heard about was, hey, they got this shortstop. You know, they got this minor league shortstop, 20 years old. He comes up, first game, hits a homer, first at bat, drives at 6. And for like 2-3 straight years until really Rizzo came along. When Rizzo came in 12, but like he was a huge reason to watch for a long time. And so favorite's probably not the right word, you know, and Sosa I was just really young for, he'd be in there too, but he was the guy I had like the most allegiance to. Like when they traded him to the Yankees before 16 and they won without him, there was like a small part of me that was like, you know, I'm super happy they won the World Series, but I wish he got one. Like I wish he was part of that team, which I mean, it was a great deal with no Zobrist, no ring. So it worked out. But he was probably the Cub. I have him, Soriano, Sosa. Those 3 were probably the 3 guys I had the most allegiance to.
No, it makes sense given, you know, when the impressionable fan years. And I feel like, especially that high school time, like when like it becomes part of like the social conversation.
Exactly. That's all we would debate. I had a bet with my buddy who was a Yankees fan in 2011 that Castro would have more hits that year than Derek Jeter. So every day we were boom, boom. You know, it just becomes like that's your peak time.
Yeah, my high school time was 2003. Dating myself here, so like that run was
Oh
my
my gosh.
first year. I like just destroyed me and all my friends. I'm in South Side Chicago. My baseball friends are all Sox fans, so like there was no pity. There was none. And then also
Man.
high school was '05, where I was just the world's biggest tool. I didn't wear white colored socks because I didn't want anyone to think that I was supporting the White Sox in any way.
That's
which
awesome.
like older version of me now realize that's petty and stupid, but at the time it was like my entire identity was my Cubs fandom. So didn't want anyone to think that I was even giving an ounce of support to a different team. So
it's awesome.
You said you're a season ticket holder. Do you have?
I was not anymore.
Okay,
yeah. Favorite game? Yeah.
Favorite game? Yeah.
I mean, the playoff games in 03 were big. I remember those pretty well. There was a game. I don't know the exact year. I think it was either 01 or 02 where the Cubs were playing the Giants because it was peak Barry Bonds.
Okay.
And it was a night game. I think it was 70s night because I was dressed up like Austin Powers. I think it was.
Yeah, baby.
I think it was the same game. And Bonds did not play that game. He wasn't in the lineup. He was getting a day. And at the end of the game, the Cubs were up like 5 runs, something like that. And he came up to pinch hit with the bases loaded late. But they were within Grand Slam. They weren't in Grand Slam range. And I just remember the park and hearing the boos when he just came out to go on deck.
Oh,
and
wow.
then he came up to hit and everybody was standing. And I just remember this really well. The first pitch, he hit a rocket. And I mean, like, it sounded different than anything you've ever heard right at, I think it was the center fielder, one of the outfielders for an out. And I just remember kind of like, I was probably 9-10 years old. And I just remember like, I knew that something was different. You know what I mean? You were seeing something different. So that was a good memory. I've seen a lot of great walk-offs. There's a lot of them. I saw Sosa hit 3 home runs in a game when I was real little. I don't remember that well. My dad just told me that I was there. So.
No, those are some good memories. I was a season ticket holder starting in 2012 and gave them up in 2019 and what my wife and I referred to as the Bryce Harper ultimatum. And we all know how that went. But yeah, it was, I would say, my favorite game was the first time I had season tickets opening day. Like just that feeling of like finally like climbing that hill. My whole life I wanted season tickets. Like back when the list was like 20 years long, I put my name on the list when I was 7 and got called in my 20s. And like that sitting in those seats that were my seats just after Theo had gotten hired, knowing that like we were potentially at the beginning of something special, even if they were losing. That's a feeling I'll never forget. And Derek Jeter's last game at Wrigley is a highlight for me as well. He was
that's a good one.
One of my favorite non-Cubs. Just like the way he hustled, and when I played baseball, I was like a scrappy hitter. Like he wasn't a power hitter, just hit the ball over the place. And yeah, when you grow up around the time that we grew up watching the Cubs, there aren't many playoff teams to root for, so you find rooting interests to continue to watch baseball. And that was the Yankees were so dominant in the late 90s, early 2000s, so there was a lot of Jeter on TV, so that started to grow an affinity to him.
Yeah, we gave up. My dad moved on from our season tickets after 08. We were at game 1 of the Dodger series when Loney hit that grand slam, and that was it for him. That was it.
So, last one, ballpark. You're going to the ballpark. What is your ideal ballpark meal, beer, or beverage? What are you going to first?
Yeah, Chicago dog for sure.
There you
go.
You don't have to say that. I know this is a Cubs podcast, but if
mustard,
you really mean
I grew up in the hot dog business. Mustard, relish, onion, pickle, tomato, sport, maybe a little easy celery salt on there.
There you go.
Chicago dog, some fries. I'm not a big beer guy. If I'm at the park, maybe I'll have one. I don't have like a real specific preference of the kind. But yeah, for me, if I'm going to Wrigley, get me a nice Chicago dog with the works, and that'll hold me through the game. It'll cost me about $80, but it'll get me through the nine innings.
And then if you're sitting at Wrigley, where's your preference to sit?
I always still go to the bleachers with my friends. But to be honest with you, I love the game so much. Like I am not one of those people that go to Wrigley for the experience. I go to Wrigley to root the Cubs to win and to be there. And so when I'm in the bleachers, I just feel like everyone's so distracted. It's just not for me. I have no interest in a beer snake. I'm trying to win a baseball game. Like I don't care about that. So I really enjoyed where our season tickets were. Like it was 220, section 220, and we were under the roof. So like bad weather, rain, we weren't impacted. You got a good view of the parks.
I was in 217. So like,
oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those seats are beautiful.
Yeah. Like you're kind of center. You still see all the fly balls. You got the shade.
Exactly.
It was just really, every time I buy tickets, I still try to buy in that area because I just got so used to it. Yeah. We're gonna have to catch a game together because I'm the exact same way at a baseball game. I generally don't even get up once the game starts because I don't want to miss anything. And
exactly. I'm there to win. It's about winning baseball games. That's what it's about.
Yeah, and like not to bring this up, but like it's not cheap to be there. I understand when I get there how special it is and how excited I am to be there, and like I get to experience live the thing that I watch, regardless if I can be there or not, every day of the year. So, and to 100%. Me, it's point of origin. Like it's where my soul recharges is Wrigley Field. Like it's the smells, the auras, all that.
100%.
Well, before we let you go, just want to let you have an opportunity. You obviously have an episode coming out. It's a daily.
It's out.
It's out about the Dodgers. Do you have anything else coming up, or kind of plug like where people can find you on socials and where people can find your content? I'm sure they know you guys are very popular. You guys have a great show.
I appreciate it. At Sam Olbur on Twitter. Locked On Cubs on YouTube, and then if you're an audio person, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your stuff. We're pretty much on all the platforms. Locked On Cubs, give us a listen, and man, let's have a great year.
Make sure you guys check out that daily podcast for your daily Cubs fix. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sam. And hopefully Cubs will thrive in 2025.
Love it.
Hope that Jed's not done making some moves and we can get a playoff team together. And let's catch one of those games and let's bring home some W's.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.